Okay, final task on the second AAT sample assessment. So 12 marker on incomplete records. Right, so Ian printed a report from the accounting software system. The report suggested his closing balance of product TP2 was 368 units valued at £1 per unit. The TP2 is a small component. An inventory count revealed that Ian held 378 units valued at £1 per unit. Right, so in other words, he thinks he should have, well, his software is saying 368 units valued at £1, but he's actually got more. Identify whether each of the following could have accounted for this difference. So, theft of inventory. Well, no, because if it was theft, you'd expect the actual physical count to be lower than the accounting system. A purchase credit note had been entered twice on the accounting system. So a purchase credit note would mean that we'd sent stuff back, which would mean we would be holding less. So yes, it could be that. A box of TP2 has been omitted, missed out. No, again, then we would have expected the physical to be lower, and it isn't, so no. Production had returned a number of the components unused, but this had not been recorded. So in other words, they've come back into stock, they're counted, but it hasn't been recorded. So yes, it could be that. If the closing inventory reported was too high, this could lead to the gross profit being under or overstated. Right, so if we've got too much closing inventory, that means that we've deducted too big a number from cost of sales, which means our cost of sales is lower than it should be, which means that our profit is higher than it should be. Closing inventory reported was too high. Yeah, because another way of thinking of that is that if you're pushing more of your stock into the next reporting period, then you haven't got the cost of that stock in this period, and therefore your profit figure would be too high because you've got missing expense in effect. And the current assets being, so they would be overstated as well, wouldn't they? Because you've basically said we've got more stock, more asset than we should have. You are preparing the accounts for a sole trader and have been given the following information. So I can see straight away this is a margin question. So calculate the value of the sales net of VAT. Sorry, just get my calculator back. Right, so the way I do this is I write down my sort of cost structure first of all. So I go sales, cost, profit. I know my profit represents 30%. And because it's a margin, I know that my sales represents 100%. And my cost of sales is representing 70%. So using that to help me, so I know that my sales, including that, so actually the first thing I need to do is strip that down to a net figure, which is asked me to do in this first part of the question. So 76,080, I'm going to divide by 6 to work out the VAT. which is 12,680, and then subtract that, which gives me 63,400 as my net sales figure. So that net sales figure represents, as we said, because it's a margin, 100%. So if I divide that by 100, I've got 634, which represents 1%. Now I want to know what the cost of sales is. So if the profit's 30 and the sales is 100, the cost of sales is 70%. So I'm going to times my 634 by 70, which gives me 44,380. And then the final part of this question is to calculate the inventory. Right, so if I know cost of sales is 44380, and I know that that's calculated as opening inventory plus purchases take away closing inventory. So I've got the opening inventory. So 5050 plus 48,390. That gives me 53,440. So I need to know what to subtract, which must be my missing closing inventory, to get to this 44,380. So therefore that must be 9,060. Right, then finally, another client, Melissa Rose, sells dolls for £48, previously purchased them for £40, not VAT registered. This means she has, is it a markup or a margin? So if she bought them for 40, if it was a markup, we'd be adding 20%. So I've just checked that and it does work to 48. If it had been a margin of 20%, we would work out 20% of 48, which would have been £9.60, which doesn't work. So therefore, that must be the final answer. This always happens. I've dropped a mark. I don't know why on task 4. I'm guessing it's because I didn't press enter, because I have been double checking the answers to the mark scheme as I've been going along. So you can rely on what I've said in the video.